Okay, just getting everything set up here. Okay. Hope everybody's doing well. We're going to start now in a few minutes. I don't want to kick everything off until the time comes. That's about 15 minutes from now. However, may as well just get warmed up. Get ready to go, because I'm usually always a bit jittery at the start anyway. Also, my camera is crooked, so we're going to fix that, I think. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so yeah, I'll do an explanation and everything else in a few minutes. I hope everybody's doing well on Monday. If you have anything to share, feel free to share. In the meantime, I'm going to show you guys something as well that popped up on the ffxiv Instagram today that I wanted to talk about as well. I'll probably talk about it a few times. It's an interesting image, assuming I can find it. So it's down, categorized under Dawntrail. Yeah, pre-images. Solution 9, there we go. Okay, so the ffxiv Instagram released 3 images today. It was this image essentially sliced into 3. So I stitched the 3 of them together in order to get the full picture. And I have to say, it's gotten me pretty psyched. Because just looking at it, it's just like, it's a whole new picture. Like, because we've seen pictures of Solution 9, but this is the first picture of Solution 9 we've gotten with actual proper activity within it. And it looks really cool. So, I was thoroughly impressed by this image. So, yeah, I want a proper image of it because I had to stitch this together. The stitching is not perfect. So there's a slight variation like right here and right here. But it's such a nice image. I mean, look at it. It gives us a full scope of what Solution 9 is going to look like when it's, or what it looks like in the developer's eyes. But you can see there's a lot going on. So you have adventurers and average people walking around. A lot of them have their signature weapons or staves on their backs and stuff like that. So it's essentially adventurers just doing what they're doing. And then you have these two up here as well. So you have the Bun with her armor, which the armor looks really good, I have to say. And then you have the Viper here. A lot of people have been focusing on the Viper, primarily because of his hairstyle. So a lot of people in the fan events Discord have been saying his hair looks really good. I'm excited to hear about his hair. I'm not much of an expert on hair because with my onion helm, my character doesn't have hair. I don't think this hair is in the game. It looks really good. It's kind of like a play on a mohawk, if I recall correctly, or just shaved at the side with longer hair at the top. I don't remember what the hairstyle is called. I can't pull that off, unfortunately. But a lot of people have been focusing on that. So, it's interesting to find. You can see a lot of people walking around with the armor, but in particular, I just wanted to look at the general setup of Solution 9. So you have all the displays and interfaces, which we've gotten glimpses of. But the 3D interfaces, the computers, everywhere. You have the kiosk over here. This place is just so advanced, it's not even funny anymore. I mean, it blows everything that we've seen out of the water. I mean, for the longest time, up until Dawntrail, we thought that Allag was advanced. Anytime we saw Allag technology, we were like, it's so far ahead of everything else. And then we see this thing. And this appears to blow Allag out of the water as well. So, I've just been focusing on this image today because it kind of reminds me of that city in 13.2. I played 13.2 a long time ago. I think I know what you're talking about. It's the future city, although that's a vague description because it's time travel. I do know what you're talking about though, so it is kind of similar to that. But yeah, there's a seam right there, so. But I know the city you're talking about, the really advanced one that blows everything else out of the water. So that's what Solution 9 is going to be. We better see Jekt somewhere. Why would Jekt turn up? Yeah, that's another thing. It's kind of like Zanarkand, isn't it? So it's like a Zanarkand kind of place, isn't it? with all the setups, the glitter. I mean, this is a perfect opportunity to introduce Blitzball, don't you think? I mean, if anybody was going to do a proper Blitzball sphere, it would be these guys. These guys have the technology for a Blitzball sphere. So if they are ever going to release Blitzball, this is the lore excuse. I can't really make out what's on that screen, but I think we've seen that screen before, so I don't think I need to read too much into it. I mean, it's neon. Like, this puts Las Vegas to shame. Like, it's neon and colors everywhere. It reminds me in a lot of ways of Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis, or Phantasy Star in general. Like, this art style and aesthetic and the city design reminds me a lot of Phantasy Star. This is Phantasy Star, exactly. It looks like Phantasy Star to me. I mean, it looks like old school Phantasy Star, like Phantasy Star Online 2, the old one. It looks like that when you're in space and you're in the main hub. It reminds me of the main hub. This was a long time ago, but it does remind me of that. But it reminds me of the other technologically advanced cities in FF14 as well. I do like these two characters, especially the bunny. The bunny's very nice. I like her hat. Or it's like a half cap though. But it's primarily because of her ears. I mean, look, they've taken account of her ears, so she has a cap. But it's like a golfer's cap. Just because of her ears. That's nice. I like that. I don't think we've seen that. I don't think that's an armor thing we've seen before. But you can just generally look at the I mean, look at what they're resting on the side there. Everything just has technology running through it. So this place is really interesting in the fact that everything is functional. I mean, you'd expect this to be made out of concrete in any other city. This seems to be made out of pure technology. And it has electricity and circuits running through it. Her leg tattoo is giving me jet. I didn't even focus on her tattoo. I don't think that's a tattoo. I think that's part of her outfit. This outfit's kind of giving me dancer vibes. Give me a second. FF14 Dawntrail site. If I recall, the dancer outfit looks similar to that, didn't it? Let me bring that up real quick. Where's the promotional website? Dawntrail, Dawntrail, Dawntrail. Dawntrail, okay. We're looking for media. I'm looking for artwork. Yeah, artwork. And where's the dancer? Dance. No, I was gonna say this. It's the monk gear level 60. Wait, really? It's the monk gear level 60 to 70. Okay. I mean, I suppose that she kind of does give me she does give me monk vibes. Yeah, maybe she is a monk. What does the monk gear look like? Let's see, Dawntrail. Site's not really intuitive, is it? Ooh, monk. Well, the latest monk one kind of looks similar to it, doesn't it? Similar, not exactly, but similar. Yeah, this could be an early artist's interpretation of what this ended up being. Level 60 artifact gear. Hang on. Okay. So, monk, FF14, level 60 artifact gear. So I'm guessing the artist just had a penchant for this armor. Oh. No, that's the wrong one. Oh, where's it gone? Damn it. Dang it. Oh my god. Okay. I need to stop doing that. Alright. The window's open here. There you go. Like that? Monks are not my strong suit. I don't remember it. Is there another piece of gear here that I'm just not seeing? That? Is that it? I mean, it seems to be different somehow. But then again, this is just an artist's interpretation. So, I mean, this doesn't look like his character either. We thinking that there's some Easter eggs down there. I wouldn't be surprised. Easter eggs are a staple of Final Fantasy. It's all different pieces. Yeah, so it's a. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the, like, even the artists themselves have a character that's dressed up in this glamour, and they just decide to insert themselves. One is giving you Yuna vibes. Let me guess, it's that one. This one's giving you Yuna vibes, isn't it? Yeah, when I saw her as well, I was getting real like, she looks like Yuna. Yeah. Yeah, she is giving me real Yuna vibes, but I think that's the point. I think when they're making these characters, they decided, and don't forget, Yuna's outfit is in the game. Lalafell down here. Or this might be a Pelu Pelu, and he's getting some dealings. Person carrying something, or someone, maybe, on his back. I think this is a black mage with their staff. Just people doing their jolly thing, walking around, doing their thing. It's such a nice image, though. I really like it. I want a proper quality image now. I'm assuming we're going to get this image in full quality soon. Left at the orange screen. Rin from FF10. Left at the orange screen. Oh. Maybe? I mean, I think they probably are taking references from a lot of different things. I mean, I could easily say that was Steiner from Final Fantasy 9. Might be Rin. Might be just an inspiration of him. I mean, that could be Lulu. That could be Edda. I mean, Edda from Final Fantasy VIII, that could be her. Don't you think? Edea? Edda? The sorceress? This artwork means that the city's been open for a while now. I was thinking Solution 9 was locked, like kept a secret. See, that's the thing. It makes you think that this city has been open for a while, like as you're saying, but I still don't know how this properly gels with the fact that this advanced city is here, and then slightly south of it is a prosperous yet less technologically advanced city. Just in my mind, it doesn't make sense from that perspective to have an advanced civilization sitting there and a less advanced civilization sitting next to it. By our own history's law, the city with the technological advantage would have taken full advantage of the lesser advanced civilization. I mean, we've precedent in FF14. The Allied Empire did it. The moment they were technologically advanced enough, they took over everything. The Garleans were the same thing. As soon as they unlocked the secrets of Ceruleum and Magitech, they conquered whatever they could. What's stopping this crowd? What is the story? It's making me think just more and more, what's the story? But that is not what today is about. The time has come. It's 6:30. Happy Monday to everybody. Monday evening, afternoon, night, or happy Tuesday, depending on where you are. So, this stream is going to be going over a few things. Specifically all around the FF14 Dawntrail benchmark, version 2, which came out today. The developers have, in their own words, been putting a lot of work into making this benchmark as seamless as possible, because a lot of people were not happy about the previous benchmark, despite the fact like the previous benchmark did what it needed to do in terms of giving us an overall feel for how Dawntrail was going to look, but also how our machines were going to react to it. However, a lot of people were dissatisfied with the quality of it, particularly from the lighting point of view and some of the graphics. So they poured a lot of effort into it. I haven't even run it yet, so I don't even know what it's going to be like. But looking at the images on the website, it definitely does look a lot better. So I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like. Now, this stream is going to serve as a primer of sorts. So I'm going to go over the settings with you now. But what we're going to do is we're going to build out my rig to best run FF14. I've pretty much already done this with the old one, but I haven't done with the new one. But I wanted to share for people who can't do upgrades or anything like that. Maybe they're running less powerful rigs. My rig's not even powerful, to be honest. I mean, my settings are not that great. My settings are at the minimum side. I haven't even upgraded since the last time. But I just wanted to go through the full settings and give everyone an idea of what you can or can't do when it comes to needing to upgrade your rig, essentially. Now, we'll go through the settings first, right? So, I have noticed that with this benchmark, some of the settings have changed names or changed identities compared to the settings that we currently have in game, which is understandable considering there is a significant graphic overhaul happening. So some of the settings are going to change, but I will go through a few of them here. So graphic settings 1 is primarily due to, it goes around your rig itself. So graphic upscaling. So if you have an AMD GPU, you'll put the AMD one on. If you have an NVIDIA one, you'll put the NVIDIA DLSS on. If you want to alternate them, you can. The performance, as I saw, was pretty negligible, but it's best to just go with the one that your rig is using. Now, dynamic resolution will turn on or off depending on whether or not you use, which graphic upscaling you use. So this is not really going to have that much of an effect on you, to be honest. The frame rate threshold is interesting, that this will only kick in when your frame rate drops below 30 or 60. So resolution is scaled dynamically to maintain a consistent frame rate. This setting is disabled when graphic upscaling is set to DLSS. But the frame rate threshold is available. So you can either switch it on always, activate when it's below 30 or below 60. I'm not really sure what to do with this because it's not a setting we have in game yet. However, I would put it on below 30, which is what I'm going to do now. Because if you're running at 30 FPS, something's definitely wrong. And you'll want something like that to kick in. So I suppose 60 would be better, but I'm just going to leave it at 30 for the time being. The next setting is for general, so it's the LOD on distant objects. So you can see with the images here, the quality of distant objects that you can see. So depending on whether it's on or off. So as you can see, when it's on or off, the quality is significantly reduced when it's off. This pretty much is just giving you better quality mountain ranges or long distance objects. Stuff that you wouldn't tend to focus on when you're playing on in game. I think I kept this off, to be honest, in my own gameplay. I'm going to leave it off for the time being, but we'll get back to that. Dynamic grass interaction is a new setting, I think. I think this is... I'm not exactly sure what it is now, to be honest. I think this is probably something to do with grass interaction or foliage interaction with your character. It's not a setting we have in game yet. So I'm assuming this is a new setting, but the grass definitely looks more filled out with it. Well, it looks... Actually, it looks rougher with it off. Then when it's on, it looks kind of softer. So I'm assuming this is softening the foliage. I'm going to leave that off for the time being. Now, those settings aren't really important. We'll come back to graphic settings 1 anyway. I want to go through the rest of these first. Now, real-time reflections are an important one. So real-time reflections relate to how materials in-game, such as my onion helm is a great example. My onion helm has real-time reflections. So if somebody looked at their face or zoomed their camera into my onion helm, they'd probably see their own character reflected in it, or they'd see the terrain reflected in it. So that's an example of real-time reflections. The most common time we ever see this is reflections in water, for example. You'll see your own character when you're running along a river. You'll see your reflection of your character in the river, or when you're passing by a pane of glass, or a window, essentially. Similar thing. But it happens with most of the terrain. It doesn't just happen with shiny objects or anything like that. Most of the stuff has real-time reflections, particularly in terms of the lighting. So that's where real-time reflections comes into its own in terms of reflecting light. which makes them look real, and it makes them look like they're part of the environment. That's what real-time reflections are for. Now, this is something that would have a significant impact on your performance. I don't know exactly how much, but if it's off, I'd assume you're going to see maybe a 5% increase in your performance, maybe even 10%. It's one of those significant settings that will cause you to have better or less performance. Now, edge smoothing, anti-aliasing. So this setting is disabled and graphics upscaling is set to DLSS. So in terms of me having an NVIDIA graphics card, apparently this is disabled by default. Now, when I turn it on to AMD, I'm able to switch on ffxiv. Now, this is a setting we have in game that you can turn on ffxiv or turn it off. Despite the fact that, for example, if I had the NVIDIA DLSS running, which is always running as far as I can see, ffxiv is still on in game, but it's apparently disabled. The setting's disabled when I'm running this. But this is primarily for edge smoothing. So this smooths out all of the elements that are in game. It smooths out the side of your characters, how sharp something looks. So if you're looking at a book, the pages are going to be a lot smoother when you turn at the sides and everything else. So it just makes the textures look smoother, and you can see with this image here that this image is getting smoother and smoother and smoother. This is a setting that will affect your performance very slightly. It's mainly smoothing out graphics. It doesn't really have a high impact on your performance. I think there's other settings though that we'll go into that will have a bigger effect that do pretty much the same thing. Now, transparent lighting quality is something else though. So let me take a drink real quick. Transparent lighting quality. And you instantly look at this and go, oh, it just affects water. It actually does a lot more than that. Transparent lighting quality affects everything in game. So it's going to affect water, as you can see there. It's going to affect how light reflects off different objects. It's also going to affect how spells look. So spells may look a lot more, whoa, with transparent lighting quality set to high, for example. And they may look a lot crisper. And spells may not look as crisp or soft or whatever when the transparent lighting quality is set to standard. So this is something that just affects everything that you do. It affects the terrain, it affects the game world, and it affects the abilities and the spells that your character is using as well. So this is something that will have a significant impact on your machine as well. So if it's set to normal or high, it will have a noticeable performance, especially if there's a lot going on around you, or if you're in a 24-man or an 8-man even, or if you're more than likely, if you're doing hunts and there's like 50 people nuking something out of it. Most of the time, people keep settings for other spellcasters off, so you can't see their own spells and abilities. So I keep that off by default, so you don't get this as much. So it mainly only concern your own character in the game world. But if you had those settings on, and this setting was on to high, you may see your performance dip significantly. So that's something to look out for. Grass quality is another one. So this setting essentially I don't think is actually changed from what the grass quality setting is in game. So as you can see with the grass quality high, you have grass foliage and a lot of different detail here for the ground. And then when the grass quality is set to off, the game looks like a game that released in 2004. So there's not really much foliage going on. The ground is pretty flat, which is what it was designed to do. So this is something that will affect your gameplay a lot, especially if you're in the open world. If you're not in the open world, grass quality doesn't really make a difference. It may affect some of the ground quality, but not much. But it's primarily when you're out in the open world or areas that have foliage. So if you're having some issues as well, you could probably set that to normal or low. I think I keep mine on normal. I don't even keep it at high, but we'll get back to that one. Now, graphics settings number 3. So parallax or Cushing. Parallax or Cushing. I don't think it's called parallax or Cushing in game. I think it's called Cushing. Why do we say occlusion? Sorry. I don't think it's called parallax occlusion in game. I think it's called occlusion something. Is it anti-aliasing occlusion or something? But the point of this is this increases the quality of the overall game world around you. So What was the other name for it? Maybe let me Google it for a second. So, okay. Fusion. Strawberry food. Yeah, so yeah, it's essentially just occlusion. So essentially what this is going to do, this is probably one of the things that's going to most affect your game performance. If I think this has the AO qualities and stuff in it, is it? Or maybe it's a tessellation? No? Maybe it's in 4, is it? No? Ah, it's down there. Okay. That's new. Okay. Interesting. So parallax occlusion, if you look at the footpath or the cobblestones in front of you, especially if you're in Ul'dah, for example, and you look at the cobblestones, if this setting is set to normal or low, whatever it is in game, the cobblestones are going to look very soft or pixelated. But if you look at it in high quality, the quality really goes up and it looks like you're really standing on cobblestone streets. But this is a setting that will drastically affect your performance as well. So depending on whether it's set to high or normal, you may see a significant drop in your performance. But we'll come back to that and we'll test it out just to make sure. Tessellation. So tessellation is an interesting one in that... What is it exactly? It sounds like water refraction. Well, I don't think that's what water refraction is. Okay, maybe they're changed the name. I always thought that was called water refraction. Because it is water, and it looks like it's water refraction. So this essentially is the same thing as water refraction. It shows you how the quality of water is going to be, especially in a river. So if you look standing beside a river and you set this setting to normal, the water is going to be going a bit mishmash and it's going to be just looking like really weird. And then when you set it to high, the quality will soften the water and it'll look like it's actually flowing in the proper direction it's supposed to be going. So this is something that would significantly affect your performance situationally, depending if you're standing near a body of water or something else that this actually affects. But I'm going to need to test that because tessellation is not a term I'm familiar with in game. Now, glare. Glare is something I'm familiar with. A lot of people would look at glare and go, okay, this just affects the sun. Not so. So essentially what glare does, it affects most of the lighting in game. Whether the lighting is supposed to be natural lighting, like sunshine or stars, or the actual lighting from lampposts, or people who are carrying around a torch or something like that. Or a light source that's constantly changing position. This is what glare affects. Now, the quality of it will jump between standard and... Wait, I thought there was more than that. I thought there was medium, low, and high. But the point is, this will affect some of your performance in terms of lighting conditions. But I was fairly certain this had a lot more settings. I thought it had off, low, and medium and high. So maybe they're changing that. Or maybe they didn't include it in the benchmark. Which seems weird. We'll come back to that anyway, but this is something that's going to have an effect on your performance as well significantly, especially in well-lit areas like cities. Now, one of the most guilty parties when it comes to performance in any game you go to is always going to be shadows. So shadows are a mixed bag when it comes to performance. So as you can see with mine, for example, for myself I display the shadows, for NPCs I display the shadows. So these shadow settings here are the same ones that we have in game. Whether or not you can hide or display shadows for yourself and other NPCs is literally everything else. So that's game characters and everything else. Your settings will be drastically increased if you turn one of those off. So if you're not displaying shadows at all, but everybody wants to see shadows and everything. So keeping these two on is the definite. What you want to change is the shadow settings down below. So using low detail models on character shadows is something I have on by default. So it's not giving me sharp, crisp shadows like I'd see in real life or in other high quality games. I never really need them. It'll show me the overall shadow, but it'll be much softer. And lose low detail models on distant object shadows. So an object that's far in the distance that's barely rendered is going to have a low quality shadow. This is probably something you could turn on to drastically increase your performance as well. but it's primarily the resolutions. So shadow resolution will determine what the shadow looks like. If it's set to low, it's primarily going to be the shadow just underneath your character. It's not really going to be reflecting your character's position in terms of a light source, both natural and artificial. Normal will give you a character shadow that will account for all these conditions, but it'll be much softer and it won't really be made out. And then high will give you a full image, like a full shadow that you see in real life. Shadow cascading is similar to that as well, so it'll determine whether or not the shadows are properly going to interact with the rest of the environment around you. So I think setting it to normal will mainly do in terms of natural light sources, and I think best will be shadows that are accounting for everything. So if you're walking under a tree, for example, and the sun is shining above, you see the shadow going all over the place because of the sun coming through the beams of light. So I think that's what the cascading is. So if that's set to best and you walk under a tree, the shadow's going to be constantly jumping around. If it's set to normal or off, it's not going to do that. Shadow softening, similar to what it sounds like, it softens whether the shadow looks strongest or weakest. If it's strongest, it's going to look like an actual shadow. If it's strong, it's going to be a bit softer, and if it's weak, it's going to be extremely fuzzy. And cast shadows is new. I don't think cast shadows is something we have in game, so I think they've actually separated some of the settings. So I think cast shadows, by the sound of it, is going to be the shadow interaction with artificial light, and whether or not objects that are placed or that happen to be there, like mechanics in game, will cast their own shadow depending on the light that is going on in the environment or the raid. So that's a new one, but all of these settings will drastically affect your performance. Like I'm saying, like maybe like 20% increase in performance, maybe even 30% depending on what your rig is. These are the settings that are always the culprit when it comes to good performance and bad performance, depending on what your rig is. So people always want good shadows, but if your rig isn't good enough, you just have to take what you can get, really, because these are always the culprits for good performance and bad performance. Now, graphics settings number 4. So texture resolution. It's pretty much the same setting that we have in game, I think. I don't think it's called texture resolution. We have a setting called texture filtering. Yeah. Texture filtering. Yeah. So I think they've changed the name of texture filtering to texture resolution. And then you have anisotropic filtering, which is 16.8.4. There's a setting missing though, because texture filtering is, if you go into texture filtering in game right now, it should give you the option of bilinear and the other two, which names I can't remember, but there's supposed to be 3 settings under the filtering, and they give you the plus X16, X8, X4. So I think they're probably changing that setting from high to normal. High is going to be the standard setting that comes with, I think this is mostly affected by DirectX 11. So I think these settings actually come with that. Or maybe not, maybe I'm wrong. But these settings should be doing the same thing that they do in game right now, in terms of they will soften, or they'll actually dictate the quality of the overall image that your screen is getting. But this is entirely dependent on your resolution. So for example, if you have, like for example, my screen, so let me just display settings. Okay, it doesn't tab out. Okay. I hate Windows 11. Alright, so my display, for example, my primary display is 1920 by 1080. So that's a standard screen. I think that's 22, 24 inches. So my screen's not that big. But these two settings here are a mixed bag depending on the size of your screen. So with a relatively small screen like mine, I can set these settings to maximum in order to get good quality. However, if these settings are maximum and your screen is like an ultra wide, you may see a significant drop in the performance of your game. So you'd have to set these settings to lower in order for you to actually get that FPS back. So it's entirely dependent on the screen you're using. So the settings that I end up plugging in will not necessarily work for you if your screen, for example, is much wider than mine. So if yours is much wider and you're having performance issues, set these settings to a lower setting and try it then and see if it works for you. Now, movement physics, I don't think affects much in terms of FPS. I'd say just keep them at full, because I remember setting them to off or simple before, and the NPCs look very statuesque. It would take some getting used to, but yeah. So, naturally darken edges of the screen. This is literally just an aesthetic. It's not going to affect your gameplay in any way, shape, or form. The screen space ambient occlusion. So, this is the setting I was looking for. So, this setting determines... whatchamacallit? This is still... it's still the same name as that, isn't it? Let me look online. Hang on. Let's see... no. Ambient occlusion. Okay, I think this is primarily for rendering. Yeah, because you can look at it's primarily to do with the background. So if you look at this character here and you scroll down the settings, you can notice that the background of his character is a bit different. So I think this determines the rendering of terrain depending on how close or far away you are. So this wall is rendering pretty low and he's standing in front of it. Then with a setting at GTAO quality, the thing is at full quality like he's standing beside it. So this determines how far away and how properly this actually dictates the quality of the actual thing you're standing beside. I think this affects everything though. This affects walls, it affects the footpaths, and I think it affects a certain amount of... yeah, it affects everything, I think. Everything that's in game, except your characters. Then glare comes up again. So there's two glare settings. So there's this glare setting and this glare setting. This is... okay, so they must have separated glare into two. So this glare is to do with artificial light. Oh, sorry, no. This glare is to do with natural light. Or light depending on how it interacts with objects. And this one is just glare in terms of natural light. So the natural light is a lot better, but this will have a very insignificant effect on your performance. Maybe a couple of percent tops. And if you're indoors, it's not going to matter. Water refraction is similar to the other setting I was just looking at. So I think this is the one I was looking for, because the other water effect that I was looking at before, so this one softens or hardens the water to make the water look proper. Tessellation is something similar to that, but this one determines what the actual water quality in terms of waves. So if you turn this to low or off and you look at the water on the sea, it's not going to look very good. It's going to look very static. But if you turn this to normal, there's going to be waves and coasts going in and out and stuff like that. So I think that's what that affects. I'm pretty certain that's in game, but I'm not 100% certain. And then enable depth of field is only for cinematics, and it doesn't really have an effect on your performance because cinematics are just movies, essentially. But that is it in terms of the settings. Now, there's an argument to be made between performance of your game in windowed mode, borderless windowed mode, or full screen. I think it's pretty negligible, to be honest. I set mine to borderless windowed primarily because I do a lot of recording, so I have to constantly be tabbing in, tabbing out. And a lot of people tab in and tab out to interact with their second screen, so most people, I imagine, play on borderless windowed. So if you're going to continue to play on borderless windowed, just keep the thing on borderless windowed and just go with that. My nose is so itchy. Sorry, I have a cold, so my nose is pretty itchy. But that's the entire setting overhaul for the Dawntrail benchmark. So we're going to do this in 3 ways. So, well, there's 3 ways you can do this, right? So when you're using a benchmark, you can either set it to your native settings. So you can import your settings. For example, if I import my settings, this will import my settings from my game client. which already knows where it is. So it's imported my settings from FF14, the one I play right now. And all my settings have changed to what I usually display them as. I think this is off, primarily because the DLSS is on. And yeah, my settings are strong, relatively strong, not too strong. Yeah. Now that's the first way you do it. So you can set this benchmark to your native settings as they are now, and then tweak them to a point where you're happy with for Dawntrail. That's what most people will end up doing. The second option is setting the settings to maximum and just dialing them down from there in order to get the best visual look for your game. Then the third option is setting the settings all to their lowest form and then dialing them up to get to a position where you can straddle the line between performance and quality, because you want the performance to stay where you are happy, but you don't want to sacrifice the graphical too much. So for this video, I'm going to do it from the lower side because I prefer actually dialing things up rather than dialing them down, because it feels like you're taking away. I'd rather add things on first. It makes me feel better. So I'm going to set the settings to the lowest, which I think is standard laptop. So I think that sets the it sets the settings to the lowest. So that's the setting I'm going to use to start it off. However, before I do that, I'm going to set the settings to maximum because I want to see what the benchmark is right now in terms of its performance. So we're going to leave those settings at maximum. I'm going to set DLSS to on because I use an NVIDIA graphics card. I'm going to OK that. I'm going to turn the music off. Now, my performance may or may not be affected because of the fact that I am utilizing OBS to live stream right now and have tabs open and stuff like that. So there's a few things that will affect your performance. If you have a YouTube video playing on your other screen and it's in HD, for example, your benchmark is going to suffer. I don't have that right now, but I do have the tab open with the YouTube stream. So my performance may or may not be affected, but not by much. I don't know what OBS is going to do, to be honest. But there's a couple of things you need to watch out for in terms of when you're running your own benchmark. So you've downloaded the benchmark and then you just run it. It's important, though, to put the benchmark onto your right disk first before you run it. So, for example, if this benchmark is sitting on your C drive, which is already busy with the running of the operating system, it won't affect your performance massively, but it will affect it. So I prefer to put this onto the secondary disk I have, which is my install disk, which is where the installation for FF14 is. So I've put it onto there. So that'll give me a much better picture of exactly how it's going to perform on a disk that's only doing one job, which is running this benchmark. Now, so I've set the settings to maximum, and I'm going to run the... Well, I think I'll create my characters. It'll allow me to actually see the lighting. So let's run my character creation first. I think my character should still be there. I hope. Or at the very least, I'll just create something. So I think that's the same, is it? I don't think they changed that. There's no sound on this. Okay, pre-made my planesfolk. So this is what my LFL usually looks like. You only saw him for a second. Okay, so that's my character. So maximum settings, borderless window, 1912 by 1080 with DLSS enabled for an NVIDIA graphics card or AMD graphics card, depending on you. So let's run it and see how this goes. I have the scores up here. So if I tab into my other screen, I'm going to turn off my preview now in a second to give me some performance boost as well. But the settings I have up here are the benchmark results for the old version. So when I ran the old version in max, I got 12,361. And then on the old version with client, which is my client settings for FF14, which I pretty much haven't touched, I got 13, almost 14,000. And then I'm going to update this list from there with the settings. And I'll be interested to see how much of a discrepancy there's going to be on the max settings from the old version and the max settings in the new version. I don't think there's going to be much, but we're going to find out now. Run it. My tea is cold. I am very sad about that. Getting slightly over 1,000 at this point is okay, but don't forget my rig is pretty much on the minimum side. And out. Shadow refracting, I can see it in the eyes as well. Okay, we should see this glass quality. Water is refracting around the characters, as you can see there. Sorry, I can't make the mouse while it's running. I do like the way my character looks, especially with the lighting. It's much better than it was. They've definitely done a lot of work on this benchmark. Now here's the settings in terms of the spells and effects. So if you turn your spells and effects down, you'll get a lot better reaction. The hair. There's definitely a lighting change on the hair. I don't think I noticed that before. There's definitely light change with the stones, the buildings. And the light refracting off that aetheryte is very different. Same, yeah, pretty much. No real change there. The eyes just look so good. The ears are so much more natural. Alright, rock oils. So I lost 1,000 between the old one and the new one. It's very high, but 11,311. 11,311. Okay, so 11, 3, 11. And my old settings, well, on the old version, max settings was 12,361. And this new one is 11,311. So I lost 1,000 points. That's a significant drop. So these settings that they made, these changes that they made, especially to the lighting and the quality, have drastically affected performance. So, as I already stated, first things first, I'm going to turn the sound down because the sound was way too high. It's primarily the background music was too high, wasn't it? So we'll turn on the master volume as well. There we go. Okay, because I want to still be able to hear you. Or I want you to still be able to hear me, rather. So, with a drop of 1,000, I'm going to do this the way I was planning to do it. Option 3, I'm turning the settings down to their standard. So standard laptop, which should nuke all the settings down to the lowest versions. Alright, so that's turned off that. Distant objects are lesser quality. Okay. Off, normal, low, which are all the lowest settings. Normal, off. Display, I want others, I don't care what it says, I want others to be displayed. I'm not having characters walking around with no shadow. That's going to be weird. And the shadow settings are at their low, well, almost at their lowest. I don't think I need them to be too low. But you know what? I'm going to set them all to the lowest. Off, weak, minimum. Because I'm not only doing this for me, I'm doing it for you guys as well. So that's low at 4. Movement physics are full for me. I'm going to leave that full as well. Because I don't want people walking around like weirdos. Naturally darkened, that shouldn't really affect anything. This being, I'm going to turn it off. Glare is going to be low. Water refraction is going to be low. Enable depth of field. So all the settings are now at their lowest, like literal lowest settings you could be. So let's see now when I run this, exactly how much it affects performance. I should see this score go to the roof now. I should be in the 20,000s, I imagine. Now, in terms of having this benchmark on the correct disk, it affects stuff like this, the loading screens and stuff like that. Yeah, that's better performance. So you can see the new line that's on top is the lowest settings, the line below it is standard. Your PC got 18,400. Your PC only got 18,000? That's perfect though. You're set for Dawntrail. Especially with that screen size as well. Pay attention to the settings for bilinear or asymptotic as well. So with a screen like yours, set the asymptotic to 16. Under 20k need upgrades. I should really upgrade mine. I'm just either too lazy or, to be honest, I have another obligation that I'm required to purchase soon. I'm going to upgrade the RAM at least, but I have something else that I want to buy before I buy the PC cards. I could afford both of them, but I'd rather not spend that much money. Okay, so the settings are significantly lower, like everything's blurry. Let's see what my character looks like here. Not too bad, but you can tell the terrain is severely suffered. Eyes are also not reflecting the glare is gone. New PCs and parts are very expensive. Not like it was during COVID, but still. But yeah, this is a good place to start by putting all the settings to low and then just starting to dial them up. And then you'll get to your sweet spot of where you need to be. You've got a month until Dawntrail, which is the perfect time to do it. And spell effects are still there. It's going to be a given. There's a setting in game which I don't think the benchmark gave us for turning off spell effects for other characters. But that has to be on for the benchmark in order to show off the game, essentially. Which is why this benchmark is not perfect. This benchmark is designed in a closed environment. The online environment is very different because it's started moving around. So essentially this is just a recommendation. It's not to do all anyway. So I'm already at 8,000. I expect to get to at least... I expect to get to like 18,000 or something with the lowest settings. On my rig, which is minimum settings. Which is minimum system requirements, rather. Yeah, not bad. Everything just kind of looks washed out. But the settings, see the lines, the settings are crossing over themselves sometimes. Especially at this part. But you can tell the shadows are really janky. And other characters, some things don't have shadows. The characters themselves have shadows because they left shadows on. The game looks good on low settings, I do agree. But I can tell things just don't look as good. Don't look as crisp. His hair looks nice. Armor looks okay. There's still a lot of depth to the game, but you can tell the shadows are really jank. The shadows are the biggest one that affect your performance. And when you turn shadows down, the game will start to look really janky. And you can tell that by the shadows there. Like, a lot of these shadows are really weird. Especially terrain. Terrain shadows are where, if you turn your shadows to low, terrain shadows are where you're going to see weird things happen. They're going to look like pixelated triangles and rectangles. Long distance terrain is non-existent. Yep. You can tell everything's sharpened up the moment it's zoomed in. Everything pretty much looks as I expected. Although, I'm not even going to get to 18,000. I think I'm going to get to 60. Yeah, I'm going to get to 60. Yeah, so I didn't even reach 17,000 on all the low settings. But don't forget, I have to take into account that I'm streaming as well. So, and I can hear my fans are going a bit high as well. If you didn't know as well, if you get a very low score on the benchmark, all these characters are disappointing. So that's that. So not too bad. Not in the words of that Chernobyl TV show, not great, not terrible. So I'm aiming again for the performance where my client was operating very well, which is around 13,000. So I'm going to start to dial the settings up from here. So I'm going to leave this on. The frame rate threshold, activate when frame rate is below 60. I'm going to leave that as it is because the frame rate was not going to drop below 100 with all the settings low like that. Now, display on distant objects, I'm going to leave that on for the time being. So we'll turn that off maybe at another point. Real-time reflections, I'm going to set that to standard. Just start looking at it. The grass quality, I'm going to leave at low where it is right now. I'm surprised I didn't turn it off. Transparent light quality, I'm going to leave normal as is. The settings I really want to look at are the shadows though. So the settings I've turned on for now is, yeah, real-time reflections. I've given them a basic reflection. And I'm going to leave these low detail models on character shadows and distant objects on for the time being. However, I'm going to set the shadow resolution. I'm going to keep it at low, actually. And I'm going to set the softening to strong and the cascading to normal. And that should clean the shadows, particularly around terrain objects. The glare I'm going to leave off. Tessellation I'm going to leave off. Parallax occlusion I'm going to leave off for the time being. I'm going to leave these as they are, because I mainly want to see, with turning the shadows on even a small bit, how that's going to affect performance. So let's see now. Because shadows are always the first thing you want to look at. Okay, similar to where we were. Shadows look better. But still, there's still janky shadows around the objects. I think that's the shadow cascading instead of fire. Face looks better, shadows look better. Not amazing, but still look better. Shadows on the sea and the objects underneath the water are fine. Performance is pretty much the same. So it hasn't really changed that much. So I might have to set the settings a bit higher. If we don't get a significant or performance downgrade, I'm going to leave it as is. I won't really need to let this thing play out. As you can see with the bars there on the bottom left, that it's pretty much the same performance. So increasing those shadows, but depending on where you're going to be looking, so it depends on where you are. When we start seeing all the characters on screen, I expect that's when this performance is going to drop compared to my last test. Okay, the shadows in the forest look better. So things look better, but performance has not really dropped that much. The drop has been very insignificant. So that's good. But the shadow quality is still low. If I set it to higher, I expect the performance to drop. Probably about 5%. Right, so here's where things are better. Oh, pretty much the same. There's a lot more shadows in this scene, but there's no real effect on the performance. It's good, good news. That new paladin ability looks like a thunderclap. So yeah, I expect this to be around 16,000, like the old one. I forgot to write down the other setting, didn't I? Damn it. But considering the performance is pretty much the same, I'll write down that one. Okay. Shadows look better this time, in this area at least. There's a setting I need to turn on to dictate the shadow quality of the cobblestones and stuff like that though. So that's the setting I'm going to turn on now. Running on the lowest res with the lowest settings is quite fun, super high score. Except in my part, like I got extremely high but barely. So still, I think I'll be able to run Dawntrail just fine. I'll be interested to see what my RAM upgrades that I have upcoming does. RAM is usually insignificant for machine upgrade. I really need the graphics card upgrade. I need the extra RAM right now. Off we go. I think I'm going to leave the shadows as they are for the next test. I'm going to turn on some of the other quality features though, particularly quality of terrain. And see how much they affect the quality. FF14 can and can't be CPU intensive. Depends on what's going on. bottleneck tends to be very loud. I'll turn down this sound again. Performance has not really changed that much in the shadows. We've gotten to the end of the thing now, and I'm pretty much going to get the same score. I think I got 16,200. Okay, so tweaking the shadows slightly did not dip my performance, which is interesting. Okay, so I can cancel the test there. So that was 16,300 and something, wasn't it? 16,388. Okay, so let me update this real quick. So let's see, new, low, 16,388. Okay, so, and I'm aiming for the sweet spot of 13,000 because that'll give me good performance and good recording and everything else. But yeah, regarding what you were just saying in the conversation there, games like this tend to reverberate between CPU intensive and GPU intensive depending on the actions you're doing. Some games can be more CPU intensive. EVE Online, for example, is very CPU intensive. FF14 is more graphics intensive from my understanding. Luckily, the benchmark software I'm using is not really CPU intensive, however, it's probably graphics intensive. So I'm probably seeing a drop in performance because I'm streaming. So I'm going to run this test. I probably should have ran this test before I streamed just to see what the max settings did. So I'll run this test at max settings again after the stream ends to see if my score goes up. But for now, let's go back to the settings here. So I'm going to turn this sound down again because that was too damn loud. So we're going down here. So the first setting I want to change. So I edited the shadow settings before. The shadows didn't look that great. However, the shadow settings I did change didn't really impact performance. So that's good. The setting I want to change next is the parallax occlusion to make cobblestones and environments look much more 3D because they look pretty washed out right now. So I'm going to set that to high. So that's the first setting I want to use. The second setting I want to actually have a look at is the ambient occlusion. So it's off right now. However, I'm going to set it to the fourth one, which is HBAO standard. Yeah, a card going 2 gens like that, Mystic Chaos, would significantly increase your performance. So it is primarily a GPU benchmark when we have this game. But grats on the 4070, it's a very nice card. Okay, I'm going to set the HBAO. Joe, I'm going to set it to strong. Before I start going into this territory, I'm going to set it to strong, combined with the parallax occlusion, which is apparently some new setting, I think. But I'm going to change these as well. Because of my smaller screen, I'm going to set the texture resolution to high and the anisotropic filtering to 16. So those are the settings I'm changing right now for this next test. So, and we'll leave everything else as it is. So let's try that now. I haven't touched the shadows. Again, I touched them in the last test, not this test. So let's see how it does with that change. If this is too high again, I'm going to freak out. Yeah, it's better. It's much softer. Okay, so shadows. The shadows inside the ship, when it's cascading like that, does look a bit jank. But again, I haven't changed the shadows. So I left the shadows as they are. Performance has dropped though. I think that's like... that's like a 5% drop in performance from the settings I just changed. So it's made the environment look a lot sharper than it was. So I'll be interested to see now how this affects, especially when he's running through environments like this especially. Okay. Okay, his armor does look much better. Okay, distant objects still look bad, but I left them off. Settings are pretty much stabilized. It's been a 5% drop, which is very negligible. Whichever settings we change, we're going to see a performance drop of some kind. But we're trying to make the game look as good as possible without drastically affecting the performance. So that's why I like going from the bottom to the top first. Thank you. I got him at EUIC in London. Ivysaur is my favorite Pokemon. The moment my friend found him in a big pile of plushies, I was like, okay. I can tell the environment looks much better. I didn't change the grass, so the environment looks very plain, but it does look much more 3D. The rocks that I just saw there look really good as well. Character model of the monster looks a bit washed out. Oh no, not too bad of a change. Yeah, this, you can look at the walls. The walls look much better with the changes I made. So that's the setting I'm looking for in terms of environment. Because I wouldn't want to record an environment where everything looks washed out. That looks much better. It's the ground I need to change next. So there's a setting I can change for that. So it's mainly the shadows of the ground. So you see it looks very pixelated. So we'll change that next. The eyes look much better. Surprised actually, because I didn't really change that. Or maybe the eyes always look like that. His eyes did always look very 3D anyway, so. Okay. We're pretty much on track to be on a similar score. But this last patch is going to determine that. But the settings I changed shouldn't dictate this last part. That said, yeah, it's impacting this patch. Okay, so there is a significant drop. But there is a lot of terrain here, so there's a lot going on. Fluctuations. It's the arena itself that is the primary change here. But the arena looks much more real. There's much washed out anymore. Okay, we're gonna get dropped away at 1,000, that looks like. So all the fluctuations combined resulted in a drop of roughly 1,000 performance. Okay. Alright. So 15599. So okay. So 15599. Okay, so we experienced a drop of just below 400 with those oscillation changes I made, which is not bad, and the game looking much better for it. So I'm happy with that. The next thing we need to look at here is, what is the next thing we need to look at? So I think these settings have actually really, they didn't really do anything, but the game looked much better with them on. So I'm going to leave those on for now. Let's see. The parallax occlusion being high, I'm happy with. It made the game look much better. I'm going to turn the glare to standard. I'm going to try the lighting settings next. So the glare is going to standard. And the glare here is going to standard. Water refraction is going to low. So I'm looking at lighting mostly now. And transparent lighting quality of water and liquid objects and your armor and stuff like that. Okay, I'm going to leave the other settings as they are. Real-time reflections are standard for now, so that should help with that. So those settings are the ones I've changed. So let's try it now with those changes in place. So these changes are primarily lighting. So we've added a bit of shadow first. I've added a bit of oscillation to improve the overall depth of the game. Now we're looking at lighting. So I'm imagining this thing's going to start to fall off a cliff now that I've done lighting. But I didn't max out the lighting. But you can already see there, that's at least a 10 to 15% drop from the last one. Or I think that's not the last test, that's the biggest test I did. So this is a significant drop from the last one. But the lighting does much more better, especially on the face. Look at the face. The face looks much better with the lighting. The glare, natural light. But you can see plainly, performance has significantly dropped because of lighting. Lighting and shadows are the big things that affect your performance. One or both. You have to strike a balance. Okay. Lighting in the forest looks very different. Okay. Okay. Now don't forget, I didn't set the lighting settings too high. I just set them to the next level. I didn't set them maximum. That's to be expected. I didn't turn off low distance. I'm not going to be honest. Not until the end. I want to see, once I get all the settings dialed in, then I turn off long distance. Let's see what happens. If I was going to do a guesstimate right now, I'd say I'm going to hit 14,000. Settings are pretty much the same here, which is interesting because there's a lot of spells going on. So, artificial and dynamic lighting are changed. Bad. Not bad. Okay, so settings are pretty much the same. I'm expecting a change here though, because we're going into artificial light territory here. Okay, yeah, there's a significant drop. The lights refracting off a lot of different objects in this scene. Okay. It's reflecting off the walls, it's reflecting off the characters, it's reflecting off everything. So light refraction is really major right now. I do like these, the Octets. Is this their name, isn't it? Bye bye, Pelu Pelu. I'm just now noticing that generic monster sound. You hear that in movies all the time. Don't forget, we're fighting an old man here. Okay, we've had a drop. It's dropping me down towards where I was, so I'm in very high territory here. So 1,400, sorry, yeah, 14,665. So 14,665. So plus lighting low is 14,665. So for myself, I don't want to drop below 13,000. That's where my sweet spot is in terms of good performance in this game. And ideally, that's what you should be looking for. Anything below 13,000, you're going to have an issue, I think. Now, what settings do I want to tweak next? So I have 1,000 to play with, essentially. So I'm using it as currency. So 13 is my limit. I'm not going to go below it. So I have 1,500 to play with, almost. I mean, you don't really want to be playing with performance like this, but we're trying to get the sweet spot between performance and quality. Right now, the shadows are still a bit janky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the shadow quality to 1024p, which is normal. And I think I'm going to leave the other settings as they are. I'm going to turn the glare off. Now, I'm going to leave the glare on. I'll turn things off later. I'm going to leave the glare on. Water refraction, I'm going to leave it low. These settings are okay. I'm going to leave them as they are. Tessellation. I'm going to turn tessellation on because I primarily want to see if it affects. No, I'm going to leave it off. Just with the shadow change going from low to normal. I want to see what this affects because shadows are always the big one. So let's try that. So shadows now set from low to normal. So one change we've made. These are always the big ones that always affect you. I'm going to try, once I get the shadows to where I want them, I'm going to try hiding the shadows for certain characters like NPCs and see what the performance will be. I'll probably turn the ambient occlusion off as well. terms of anything else that I can turn off. Yeah, I'll probably turn off the ambient occlusion. Assuming I didn't turn her on. I don't think I turned her on. Maybe I did turn her on. I'll check the next one. So, let's see with this now. I'll be interested next, actually. So, after we get all this done, I'm going to switch the thing back to my native settings for my client. And then I'm going to run the test again to see how it looks, but importantly, see how it performs. There's a drop here, but things do look really good. Next scene should tell me something. Didn't really increase performance in terms of water effects from long distance, but I kind of expected that. I want to see the water from a close distance, which we're going to see in the next scene when he starts running through the water. But yeah, the character lighting in the new changes do look really good. I'm very impressed. So they did a great job on this benchmark. They didn't have to be honest. They could have just said like or lump it. The fact that people got so bent out of shape over it, I guess is understandable. They were expecting a lot, but it took resources away from game development to develop this then. Or maybe, hopefully, it maybe give them some insights into improving the game's performance. So the water looks much better now because of the shadows. So yeah, shadows look much better in the water. They look much more natural. They looked a bit weird before. Okay, shadows there, very good. So the shadows are in a very good condition right now. Now that I set the shadow settings to normal, the shadows look much more solid, and they're not janking around with triangles or rectangles anymore. That's good. I'm happy with that. I do want to try increasing the grassy terrain, because the game does look very washed and very weird without it. So I think for the next change, I'm going to introduce the grass and that new setting for grass quality to see how they both perform. Oh, this cold is killing me. Okay. Okay, shadows are much better on everything, really. Okay. Yeah, walking at shadows looks fine as well. Characters walking by. The shadows on Kryle's outfit. Did I just see the ears of her hood twitch? I'm gonna look at that the next time I see it. Yeah, shadows are much better now. Now that the shadows are normal, I'd be happy with that, to be honest. With the shadows the way they are, I'm honestly happy. So I'd probably leave them like that, to be honest. I think all my shadow settings in my native client are set to maximum. So I can hear my rig just going zzz. Much better. The shadows are really much better. Yeah. I'm inclined to leave them like that, to be honest. I'm not going to touch the shadows again for a bit. I'm happy with that. And the NPCs and everything else was summoned to spawn in correct shadows, and they all look fine. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave the shadows as they are for now. They're sharp. They could be sharper, of course, but you'll see a significant drop in performance. So shadows, normal, and its other settings are set to low, not off. So, not bad. What kind of score are we going to get? How much of a drop are we going to see with these shadows? Interesting. Okay. So what was my last one? 14,665 was my last one. So we've only dropped 200. So plus shadow normal is 14413. So we only dropped a couple hundred. That's good. I'm only doing these tests one at a time, so it's not an accurate reading, but that is good. I like that. And the shadows look really nice. They're where I want them to be for now. So I'm going to leave the shadows where they are. So next I want to look at... I'd want to look at low details, but I'll save that for last. I wanted to look at grass next, because the terrain did look very meh. It looked like a game you'd play like 2 decades ago. So I'm going to set the grass quality to normal, because it looks much better. But also this new setting in terms of grass, where the hell is it? Dynamic grass interaction. I'm going to turn it to on. That's a new setting. We don't have that. We only have one grass setting at the moment. So I'm going to turn that on as well. So those grass settings, set to normal and turn the dynamics on. Let's see what sort of performance drop we're going to see. Come here, Spriggan. Yeah, on the ship, the shadows look much better. I'm so happy with the shadows. Yeah. Considering my rig is minimum spec, I'm happy with that. But considering what I'm doing nowadays, I really should upgrade. I'm doing myself a disservice not by not upgrading. Okay, there is a performance drop here. My monitor, I think it's 75, 60. I think it's 60. Actually, I think it's 60. Yeah, my monitor's a few years old. I think I bought it during COVID. But I'm happy with the monitor, to be honest. But I'd say it's probably going to start breaking down somewhat. I'm one of those people, like, I have money, but I don't want to spend it. And I usually spend it on other things. Case in point, I end up buying Pokemon cards all the time. Or other things. I end up eating out a lot. I could be putting that money into other places. Like, I do have savings for... I put my savings in a lot of different locations. And investments and stuff like that, so... I just don't end up always wanting to buy, like, graphics cards and stuff like that. I'm happy with my paper Pokemon cards. Okay, let's see here. Okay, grass quality normal and the dynamics are on. I didn't really see a change in the last game, but I wasn't really paying attention, unfortunately. I zoned out. I've only watched this now for like 10 times. Food is expensive, MVC. Like, I can remember before COVID, my favorite Thai food place, I'd get a big serving of rice and Thai curry from my favorite Thai food place for like 10 or 11 euro. Now it's like 15 euro. Prices are just nuts right now. Although I hear it's much worse in North America. I hear your prices are getting crazy. Yeah, grass must look better. Look at that. The grass is set to normal and dynamic. I don't know what the dynamics are doing exactly. I think they're just making the quality look better. Maybe I'll try turning it off at the next one and see what it looks like. Good quality pizza for 15 bucks. Now it's 22 plus. Yeah. It's inflation for it. Okay. I don't think that grass was there the first time, was it? In the in the streets. Was it? Or maybe it was. Or maybe I'm just seeing things. It's weird. Running this benchmark, my PC is very loud. But when I run FF14, even when I'm recording or streaming, it's never that loud. But yeah, I will run this test again on max settings when the stream is not on. Because I have a feeling I'm probably losing like 1,000 points. That 1,000 points I lost at the last start might just be because of streaming. Oh yeah, there's a lot of difference there, like the grass falls on the ground. Yeah, see the grass going up the steps and all, much higher quality. It's affected moss. I think moss is affected by that settings that changed as well. Are we gonna hit 1400 again? Maybe? Perhaps? I think we will. Actually, no, we're not going to. We're not gonna hit 1400. No, we're gonna just be below it. Maybe. Okay, we got 1400, okay. We lost, I think we lost like 100 points, did we? Let's have a look. 14,244. So what was my last score? So, oh god, 14,413. So plus grass normal, 14,244. So we got a drop of 200. So we spent 200 points for grass. I'd buy that for $1. So that's fine. I'm just wondering what the hell this is doing. The drop of 200 wasn't too bad considering what I got, but I'm just wondering what this is doing. The grass looked great. I'm gonna leave the grass where it is at normal, so I'm happy with that. Real-time reflection. Should I touch it though? That's fine. Tessellation is normal. Shadows are where I like them. I've pretty much gotten it to where I want it. I think I'm going to turn the glare off. Because glare is not something I've really been a fan of. I'm going to turn that down to low. Water refraction, I'm going to keep that at low for the time being. What I want to do now is turn off the low detail models of distant object shadows. So, no, I'm going to leave glare on. Now that I want to try this, it's probably one of the last tests I'll do. I am going to, yeah, I'll turn off for shadow quality just to see what this does. And I'm going to turn off this as well. So distant objects. So we're turning off its use lower details. No, we'll leave that on. We'll leave that on. And we're going to use higher quality shadows for long distance objects just to see if it improves the overall look of the game, which it really should. Things should look a lot better. Things won't look as fuzzy on long distance anymore. So that's probably one of the last settings we can change. I think I'm going to set the ambient occlusion to HBAO plus standard as well. So long distance shadows are going to be higher quality and the ambient occlusion is going to be standard. So let's run it. It's probably one of the last tests we'll do on this. But we could see there's not really been much performance drop, but the performance drop is where we expected it. When we changed the shadows, there was a performance drop. When we changed the lighting, there was a performance drop as well. And the other settings had a small drops on them each. But I don't have to set the shadows too high in order to make the game look good. Like, I'm happy with that. It could be better, and I think I have the ability to set it better on my own right. So I'd be safe setting it higher. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as it is. Now, I can't really tell. I won't be really able to tell until the end. Because I think the score line we're looking at is the highest setting we had on max settings, maybe? So we'll find out now in a minute. Just where this goes. Okay. So we're looking at long distance this time. Long distance shadows. So everything in the long distance should look a lot better. We'll see here when you're looking at the scuttles going across the water. Yeah, that looks much sharper. Not amazing, but it does look better. But we are seeing a drop. Okay, yeah, the trees behind as well look better. Shadows look much better on the trees in the background. But it is causing our performance to dip because we're using higher quality shadows. We're using the same shadow quality that we'd use on our own character on the background. That still looks a bit washed, but I'm not really sure what's causing that. I think that's the lighting that's causing that. It is a lot, and most of the changes they made to this were lighting, so the lighting has been drastically changed. Okay, not bad. Yeah, the trees in the background, the cliffs, much better. This is getting to the point where I'd be happy to play it, to be honest. And to be honest, I don't let my rig push it too high anyway. I set my FPS cap at 60. And even with my client settings, I get well over 100. So that's the one thing that's missing from this, an FPS cap. So my client settings in ff14 at the moment, if I turn the FPS cap off, I get well over 100, even in town. So pretty good performance. So very good is considered very playable. So if you get very good, that's what you should be aiming for. Aim for very good if you're on a lower power rig. Aim to get into very good. But just make the sacrifices where you need to in order to get the performance. Yeah, much better. And when you zoom out, the shadow quality in the background is still the same. Perfect. The whole area is popping out at me as a result of that. Good. Carl, my dear. Do your ears wiggle? See? Yeah, I think it's the wind causing your ears to wiggle. To be fair, her ears are pretty small. So it's not the ears in our thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about her Blood's ears. Okay. Long distance again. When we turn around here, I'm going to be looking at the shadows. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. I'm happy with that. Yeah, and the mountain range looks much better with the shadows. So we should see it here. We'll probably see a drop. There's a lot of shadows going on here. Okay, good. Perfect. Good. Good, not bad. We're gonna hit a similar score. we've lost a few hundred. But that was to be expected. With what we did, that was to be expected. But these are settings I don't normally turn off. So, let's see here. So, LOD off is 1,300. Oh, sorry, 13,847. I really should learn to count. So we lost about 400 points by turning the LOD off. But as I said, those are not settings I'd normally turn off even on my client. I just wanted to see what would happen. So we're leaving that on. And I'm going to turn this on for character shadows in long distance. So that's the setting I'd usually have on. So we're going to leave that on. Now, I want to run one last test with... Where was it? Where is it? Yeah, so I put that to standard. Most people would have this in the GTAO range of standard. Especially with DirectX 11. I'm going to leave that as it is. Although lowering it probably would increase my performance. So I'm going to set the texture resolution to normal for the last test. And put the low detail models on character shadows back on. And I'm going to turn glare off. No, I'm going to leave glare on. I like glare. And I'm going to run it like that. So this is probably the last test I'll run. Tyroliol. Try to say that 10 times. Tyroliol, Tyroliol, Tyroliol. Okay. Not bad. Settings have changed to really affect. Although they did affect the sharpness of the quality there, so I can kind of see the changes I made. Especially in, yeah, I can kind of see it. But this is not a setting I'd normally turn to normal on a smaller screen like mine. On a larger larger ultra wide, you'd probably set it to normal. Not on a smaller screen. But I mainly wanted to test it. Now I should see with those scuttle crabs scuttling across the water, their shadows should look much worse pronounced. Okay, character in the background looks a bit, yeah, the environment's fine. Okay. Now, yeah, that's what I expected. Okay. I think I'm getting to the point where I'm sick of watching this now, you know? You can only watch the same thing over and over so many times. But I'm probably going to do it like a dozen or more times before Dawntrail launches. Primarily just out of wanting to do it. Okay. Yeah. So terrain shadows should look fine. We should see a difference with the characters here when we're looking at them. Yeah, I can see it. But the characters in the distance, their shadows are much less pronounced. But you're not really looking at them, to be honest. All you want them is to have a shadow. I don't care how crisp it is. In the real world, if I'm looking at shadow of a person in long distance, it's not going to look very good to me either. Although their shadows are only rendering in, like with those wyvern that were running into the fight there, their shadows were pretty much under them, and as they're running into range, their shadows became prominent. So that's an example of shadows making long distance and short distance. It's really weird. But it is a sacrifice you make. Alright. I can really notice with the bard standing at the back there, her shadow is much more pronounced than everybody else's. Okay. I keep waving at that alpha. She's like, hi. Okay, that character's shadow is dropping off. Yeah, as expected. They're nearby, so their shadows are fine. Shadows in the background. Okay. I don't think they're too far away. There's the Hoplins. Now, to be perfectly honest, from an FPS perspective, that scene doesn't look very smooth. Whenever I look at that scene, it looks like 30 FPS. But I know it's not. Because everything else around it looks fine. It's just this character's... The Yox... Yox Frey, or whatever they're called. His character model is pretty... You know, I'm glad some Cactuar actually do look normal. Because we know we are getting the giant tender. But I'm glad there's other standards like Cactuars wandering around. Okay. Can't really see anything from that angle. Okay, what about here? Not from that angle, everything's close up. Gained some performance, which I expected. I'm fairly happy with that, to be honest. So 13,854. Oh, we didn't. Okay, so hang on. Plus LOD on 13,800. Oh, but we did turn off the anti-aliasing, of course. So the score was pretty much unchanged. It only dropped by a couple of points. I'm surprised at that, but I knew this wasn't really going to affect performance on my screen, so I'm setting that back to high. But we didn't really see much of a change by setting this setting to on, which is interesting. But I think I'm pretty much going to call it there, because I've pretty much gotten into the sweet spot I want to do, but I mainly just wanted to show this off just to see how you can actually get it to where you want it. But I highly recommend just setting them all to low and start turning them on. But don't forget that lighting and shadows are the primary culprits for your loss of performance. But remember that this is just a guesstimate. So it's going to show you in terms of graphics, but this can't replicate in-game conditions when there's like 100 people attacking a single mob in a world zone, or 100 people running around Nimsa Laminsa all doing God knows what, or even in the new zones. Like Solution 9 is probably going to have a lot of graphics rounds. We don't know how that's going to affect it. I say lighting is going to be crazy in that zone. But it's brand new, just an example of that. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. But I'm going to run my client test again and the maximum test again after the stream ends to see how they get on when the stream's not live. But I think I'm going to end it there because I have a big day tomorrow and my cold is not going away. So I'm going to get an early night. So thanks very much for joining. I'm probably going to clip this up and make a video of it just so people can get prepared for Dawntrail. But I enjoyed that, to be honest, and I'm happy with the benchmark. The devs did really good by us. The thing's really good. I'm impressed with it. So everybody have a good night and enjoy your Mondays, and hopefully your weeks go pretty eventful.